Hey everybody, Alvin here with Mulligans and Hackers, and today we have Carlee from Mast-Hers. And as soon as I saw this on the socials, you're actually just up the road in Calgary, right?
Yep.
So that kind of piqued my interest because we're just a few hours south of you. Um, and I saw the logo, I saw what you did, and I'm like, oh God, we got to talk about this because the Masters is my favorite tournament, as most people know from listening to the pod. And when I saw your logo, which I'll throw up here on the YouTube channel if you're looking at it, but we'll describe that in a sec. But Carlee, you founded Mast-Hers. That might be an issue throughout the pod, but um, so before we get into that, let's go back. And so, how long have you been playing golf, and when did golf become something that you were going to take to that type of level? I guess.
It's a really good story actually. I haven't been golfing that much longer than you guys. I picked it up during the pandemic as well. I think this is my fifth full season. And my fiance Ryan is a huge golfer. And when we first started dating, we've been dating about 8 years now. And so for the first, say, half of our relationship, he was just I referred to myself as a golf widow every summer because he was just never around. And I'm like, oh my God, this sport is so annoying. It takes so much time. And he's gone from the house for like 8 hours and he's trying to tell me that that's a normal amount of time to go play a round of golf. And I'm like, I don't believe this guy. This is so annoying. Anyway, fast forward a few years and he just convinced me. We went on like a little day date and we went out to the driving range at the Hamptons. He was a member there at the time. And as far as I know, they are the first water driving range where you just hit balls into the water, which is
Oh,
pretty,
really?
yeah, it's
That
really
is
cool,
cool.
very pretty. So me as a newbie showing up and seeing that, I think he picked the right place to take me initially because I was like, wow, this is really cool. Um, I also have a softball background. I played fastball for the UFC Dinos, so I have that sort of like nice, easy, very shallow swing, good hand-eye coordination. So I think I kind of surprised both of us when we showed up to this driving range and I started. I mean, I was not great, but the odd ball I would just hit right in the sweet spot and just crush it, and we'd both look at each other and be like, "Whoa."
And as soon as you do that, you know the game has got you. We've all had that moment in golf, and yeah, I get it. So
Yeah, so I we started kind of he would just take me to little city courses and I would just use their rental clubs and I would essentially just boot the ball around the course for the day, play 9 holes or whatever. And yeah, like I said, by no means was I any good when I first started. I had trouble contacting the ball. It is a slightly different swing from the softball swing, but I was a few years out of softball at that time, so I felt like I could adapt to it pretty well. It just took me a little bit of adjusting. Um, and then that was maybe like the first year or two. And then after that, when I started to play out at Mickelson with him, because he transferred his membership over there, I started to realize that I could hold my own out at that course. And I don't think I realized how difficult of a course it is because it was kind of all I knew other than these city courses that are like pretty easy. So we were just chatting I think it was July of 2021. I think I've been a member for 3 years out there. And he's like, Car, they have a spousal membership out there. And like, even though we're not married, you would still qualify for that. And he told me what the price was. And I was like, this is a no brainer. Like, I'm out there playing with you every weekend, spending at the time, it was about $150 to go out there and play as a public person. I wish it was that now still, but and so I was like, yeah, when you do the math, it kind of makes sense for me to just pay for this membership and see how it goes. And yeah, I've been hooked ever since. I play twice a week. I play in all the tournaments out there now. Um, yeah, and like here we are.
um, yeah, so I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to play Mickelson for the first time. Conditions sucked. It was brutal. It was so sad because me and Chris, when the schedule for the Alberta Golf Tour first came out, um, we had penciled that one in right from the first day that it was on there. It's like, we are going to go play Mickelson National in Calgary. And so we spent the entire year, we played a couple of events. We played one down here at the Bloom. Then we had one rained out in Strathmore, which was terrible. I mean, I was so miserable because I'm a fair weather golfer. Because again, I'm here in southern Alberta. We're in desert climate. We don't get rain down here, so I've never had rain gear in the bag. ever. Never carried an umbrella. But then when we started doing the travel golf kind of north, Chris was like, dude, you're gonna have to get like equipped for travel golf because the elements can get at you fast. And Strathmore was quite the eye opener. Like I literally went in my shirt and my shorts, and it was like, you know, 10 degrees, raining heavy, and I was miserable. But Mickelson National, we're going back again next year because apparently the tour is going back there again next year, and we got a complimentary round for from Mickelson so that we could hopefully experience the course in fairer weather. Um, but man, going around that course the first time, like again down here in Medicine Hat, we have some really nice courses. But I will tell you honestly, and this is no disrespect to anything we have down here, that was next level, like a next level experience, like a next level course. Even just driving into the parking lot and walking up to the clubhouse is like, holy, where am I? Should I even be here? Right? So I really appreciate Mickelson, and it's so cool that you get to play there all the time. So now you've played golf for a bit. You got a few years under your belt. Did you take lessons at all?
I took a set of 5 lessons with my girlfriend Carla. She helps me run the Mast-Hers actually, so we can chat about her later. But
Mm-hmm.
took a few lessons with one of the teaching pros down at Earl Grey, which was really cool as well. Private course, obviously wouldn't have access to that otherwise, but she knew him from a personal connection sort of in her university days. So we took 5 lessons, just the two of us with him, and it was essentially just working on, getting a halfway decent swing going so that you could make better contact with the ball. And then I also just did a really quick sort of 30-minute lesson with the guy, Dave Nykirk out at Mickelson. He's sort of in charge of the youth program out there, the juniors. And so I just did a quick like 30-minute lesson with him, with Ryan, actually. It was just the two of us. And he, again, I was pretty early on still. So he was just getting me to try and contact the ball. But yeah, my background is actually as a physio. So I do understand a lot about biomechanics and sort of how the body works. And I've had to work with golfers in the past. So I've been pretty fortunate in that way. I think that I can sort of figure myself out for the most part. And if I'm really struggling with something, then I obviously will reach out for help. But yeah, I think I've done fairly well actually, just sort of teaching myself a little bit. So I'm grateful for
Yeah,
that.
because that's all we've done in the. This is our fourth year playing now. It's all self taught. It's all a ton of range time, a ton of work on the course, and I find that when we're not playing well or I'm not playing well, like because we don't have any lessons, we've never taken any lessons or anything. I don't have any markers to go back to kind of like, okay, go back, reset to here, and kind of work your way out. So, as I always ask people, like, have you ever taken lessons? Because that might be something because us, if we're going to continue on the Alberta Golf Tour and play that style of golf, which I think we're going to because it was an absolute blast. Lessons might be in the future here, maybe in the off season, right? So I like to know that. So, all right, you're into golf. You're playing with your fiance and your friends, and you're enjoying that. So now we'll get to where did the idea for the Mast-Hers come from? Because I mean, it's the most fabulous play on words for the Masters. As you can see, like I've got my flag up there from 2021. I mean, it is when I saw the jacket. We'll get into that in a sec too, but I just want to know where it started, where the idea came from, and how just okay. Before I get too excited to get way too ahead of myself here, just give me an idea where this started and how this idea kind of fermented itself and came to fruition.
Yeah, that's a pretty good story as well, actually. When I first started playing at Mickelson, as I'm starting to kind of get to know a little bit more about the golf world, I started hearing something about this men's member guest, and I kept seeing them advertise it all over their social media, and they were sending emails out about it, and I'm getting all these emails as just a, general member of the club. And so it's piquing my interest because I'm like, okay, well, when are they going to announce this ladies member guest or something similar? I'm seeing all the sponsorships they're getting for it, all the awesome prizes they do, all the food, the free drinks, like all this stuff. I'm like, this sounds great. I'm like, I can't wait for the ladies one because clearly it is labeled the men's member guest. Like clearly we're not allowed to come. And so I started asking, I actually messaged their social media account when they advertised or when they posted something about the men's member guest. And I said, oh my gosh, when is the ladies? I'm so excited for this. And she, the girl who was running the account at the time, said, oh, we actually don't run one. And I said, why? And she's like, well, in the past we've tried to run one and there wasn't a lot of interest. And I'm like, am I missing something? Like this course has only been open for like 3.5 years. Like what, when did you try to run one? And like, when was there any effort put into it for any period of time? So anyway, put that conversation to rest and just started chatting with some of the other ladies around the course and at the club and just, on ladies' nights and just random rounds on the weekend. And the consensus was that there was quite a bit of frustration brewing with a lot of the women over the fact that there wasn't a tournament for us. And like, I know now that traditionally member guests are not really co-ed, like it's usually men and women, and that's fine. At the time, I kind of felt like that was strange, and that was maybe just an archaic tradition of golf that could potentially change. And I was like, well, why don't they just make it co-ed if they can't get enough interest from, and there wasn't a ton of ladies at the time either, so that also makes it tough. But yeah, it just seemed like everyone I talked to was like, yeah, like why don't we do this? And nothing was coming about. So I just decided, I was like, I'm gonna throw an event together for us ladies. And I don't know what it's gonna look like. I don't know if it's gonna be as structured as a tournament or if it's just that we'll book a bunch of tea times and we'll sort of take over the afternoon and not really have any, like, no offense, groups of men breathing down our backs and trying to get us to hurry up. And we'll just have a good time. So I knew I was going to do it. And then Ryan and I were actually sitting on this very couch that I'm sitting on right now, watching the Masters. This would have been 2022, or I can't remember if it's 2022 or 2023, but I had had a few cocktails that afternoon. And I just yelled across the condo. I said, Ryan, I'm like, I'm going to call it the Mast-Hers. And it was just silence. And he was like, oh, yeah. Isn't that great? Like, I thought it was so genius. And I am the least creative person. Like, in school, I was always very science minded. Like, you wouldn't see me excelling in English class or like writing poetry or doing anything that creative. So I was so proud of myself. And he just didn't really seem that excited about it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Pitched it to a couple of my girlfriends and they're like, that's great. We're doing it. Like, let's go. So there it was. It was born. So we decided to go forward with it.
Okay, so you've got the idea. So, and one of the first things I saw was the green jacket, and we all know what the green jacket symbolizes in golf. But your logo has the Alberta map on it, where the U.S. map would be on the jacket, and I thought that was the most fabulous thing I have seen in a long time when it comes to golf. I absolutely love that logo, and
Pink
it'll
flag.
it'll it'll be, and yeah, the pink flag, and it'll be up on the screen here, like throughout this podcast. Um, where did you come up with that?
So I gotta give a big shout out to my friend Tony Law. He has a background in graphic design, and I knew I wanted to do my own logo just to make it a little bit more legitimate and for it to feel special for the ladies. And so I just threw out a random Instagram story just asking if anyone that I knew had any experience with graphic design. And he messaged me right away and said, I'll do it for you, no problem. And I kind of told him what I was looking for. I thought, oh, yeah, I want to do something that's, specific to us, but like kind of has a nice nod to the Masters. And he came up with pretty much the whole idea himself. And where the pin is on the map is exactly where Calgary is on the.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So he came up with it. Huge shout out to him. I owe almost all of the success of this event to him because I just think it's such a nice touch that right from the get-go we were able to put on, like, we got personalized golf balls done the first year and we put tumblers out for the ladies as tea gifts, and we just put our logo all over everything, and it just feels that much more special for us, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fabulous. It hooked my eye as soon as I saw it, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is fabulous!" So, kudos to getting this off the ground and getting it started. So now you have these ideas. You've talked to the ladies. You have your logo. Give us a little rundown on how many events have you had?
Just two so far. This
Two.
year was the second one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So give us a rundown of how you prepped for that first one, because we've been doing this for a little while as well, and it can get a little like herding cats sometimes for us. And as our seasons continue, actually our member participation has actually gone down to like what we have as a core four now, because it's so hard to get. Everybody has lives. I get it, and it's so hard to get events set, especially if you do a number of them throughout the summer. Now you only have the one so far, so Give us a rundown on how you prepped for that first event and how you reached out to people and even how you got sponsors. Like, because the first event is the big one. It's the icebreaker, and it's kind of going to give you your make or break. Is this worth it, or is this something that might be passe kind of thing? So how did that first one? How did you build that first one?
Um, Another pretty good story, actually. I sort of just envisioned the first one as, yeah, maybe just a collection of members. I was thinking, even if we get 20, 30 ladies out, I'll call that a success. And we'll just sort of see what we get to begin with in terms of people who are interested and actually end up registering. And then we'll go from there as to what the format is and all that kind of stuff. I agree. It is like herding cats. But actually, I'm gonna shout out my girlfriend Ashley, who also helps me run it a little bit. I don't even think she knows the full story of this, so if she's listening to this, she'll be hearing this for the first time. But both her and Carla actually work in energy to a certain extent. So something I am not even close to familiar with. I've never worked downtown. I've never been in that corporate space. So when we were trying to get it off the ground and trying to figure out what avenues we could go down to try and get some more interest. Like, of course, we wanted some Mickelson members, but we just wanted to expand this to whoever would be interested. At the time, I was kind of wanting to keep it somewhat smaller and not, big tournament style numbers because I am new to golf. I also have never planned a golf tournament. No idea how to even come close to doing that yet. Zero experience. So I was like, well, if we just keep it small, it'll be fine. Like it'll be manageable for me. And then I'll sort of grow with the event in what I learn each year. But she emails me one day and she says, hey, do you mind if I send an email out? It's like an email blast to this CWE group, which is Calgary Women in Energy or Canadian Women in Energy or something like that. And I said, oh, yeah, sure. Like I kind of thought it was just like a little network that her and Carla were both a part of. And so she sends out this email. It's like this very beautiful, well crafted email, and she CCs me on it. It went to 800 women. And I remember looking at it being like, oh shit, what did she just do? And I'm like, well, here we go. Like, we'll just see what happens here. And so we just got flooded with emails and Instagram messages and the whole thing. And so Carla and Ashley both said to me, they're like, well, I guess we're doing this. Like, we're selling tickets, we're making this a thing. Like, you've got to create an Eventbrite account and just start selling tickets. And I'm like, okay. So, so yeah, that's how she went. And then we just kind of continually took registrations up until about a month before the event. And I just kind of tried to get sponsorships along the way, depending on how many people we had signed up. And it's a delicate balance because you have to start ordering all that personalized stuff well in advance and you have to know how many you need, and I had no clue, and it was dependent on sponsorship numbers, and then all of that determines how much I charge the ladies as well, based on what Mickelson's going to charge me for the golf and how much the dinner is going to cost for a certain number of people, and there's so many factors. So I remember that first year, oh man, were there some growing pains for me. I think I did a pretty good job still. Like I did the best that I could. There were a few hiccups as there would be, but yeah, it was still a great time, and I think everybody really really enjoyed it, and that's what made this year so successful.
So that first year, how many ladies did you have?
We had 40. So it's actually
Okay.
like, even though there was an email sent out to 800 women, again, it's like herding cats, and the date didn't work. And I had to choose a date that was based off of the Mickelson event schedule. And then when my girlfriends were on holidays, because I knew I needed help and all these factors. So yeah, we ended up with 40, which I remember at the time being a bit disappointed with, given all the hype that we had initially. But I think it was about right. When I look back on it now, I'm kind of thankful that that was kind of the perfect number of people. It allowed me to get my feet wet and for all of us to sort of build, like you guys have your core four, like I have my core 40 kind of. So it
Right?
was kind of cool just to have the like all those OG Mast-Hers girls, and for them, a lot of them came back this year, so we just kind of built a little community to start, and yeah, it just helped me gain momentum, I think.
So you had your second event this year, and I think that's where I actually saw the jackets and all that being prepped. Um, where did you know from the get go that the green jacket was going to be kind of the the award for winning, or where whatever however okay, let's go back. So what was your format for it?
The first one, we didn't have a format. We just ended up having it be just like a nice social event. There was no competition. Actually,
Okay.
We had on-course proxies for some fun, but there was no tournament, there was no prize to be won, nothing like that.
So
Um,
you didn't have the green jacket in the first year?
no, we didn't. So if you
Okay.
see videos of me from last year, we actually had to hold it over at Launchpad because there was a wedding in the clubhouse that same day. So if you see videos of that, I'm wearing a green jacket by shout out my favorite brand for all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They have a members only jacket called the Meg Blazer. And as soon as I saw it and based on the initiative that I knew that I was going forward with the Mast-Hers, I was like, I have to have it. Cost me an arm and a leg to get it over the border because of Canada Customs.
You bet.
But to this day, it's one of my favorite articles of clothing. And it just for me, it has so much meaning. And so I just used it that first year as sort of my uniform, I guess. And so people could identify me easily if they needed me. And I don't know, it just held a little bit of magic for me. So I like wearing that thing around and just it makes me feel confident. And yeah, I love it. And then once I had that, I thought, well, if we end up doing a second one, it's a no brainer for me that if there's, if we're going to have like a single person tournament or if it's going to be a two-person scramble or a four-person team or whatever we're going to do, we have to give away green jackets to the winners. Because what I would like to turn it into is now that I have my green jacket and then the two winners from this year, they have theirs. And I would really like to turn it into I don't think a green jacket dinner the way they do in Georgia, but I would really love to do sort of a green jacket members brunch in the morning before the event. So yeah, there's some traditions that I have in mind, and that was kind of always my thought from the get-go. If you look at my sort of initial iPhone note, green jackets is right at the top of it. So
Yeah. So this year you had a format this year?
yeah,
Well,
two-person screen.
two-person scramble? Okay, that works. That works. So you give away two green jackets, and I'll throw it back to what we did because that was kind of what we wanted to do as well. Having a tour for our friends throughout the season. Um, we play on we have a jug for the claret jug for the Open. We have a jacket for kind of pay homage to the Masters, and we have the Mulligans and Hackers Cup, which we call the Chase for the Cup, kind of like the FedEx Cup in golf. Um, so like we've taken a lot of that from golf as well and kind of made it our own. Um, but now we've taken on this Alberta Golf Tour thing, and we're not quite sure what we're doing with our tour next year. We have to do something. Um, but me and Chris plan on playing more events on the Alberta Golf Tour, which isn't going to leave a lot of time for us doing our Mulligans and Hackers tour. So again, everything changes all the time, and everything's always changing. We're not quite sure what we're going to do with it next year. We might have to actually hand it off to some of our friends to kind of work with it next year, and that's scary in itself because it's so hard to do it if you're like me, who's kind of owns it and wants it to be successful. Putting it in somebody else's hands is kind of like, I'm pretty sure if I do that, it's probably going to fall apart. But
Yeah.
For me and Chris, our next step is we want to play that type of tournament golf regularly. And so we're not quite sure where we're headed. So obviously this is a once a year type of event. So where do you see it going? Or I guess what would you like to see where it goes down the road? Like say next year's event. What would be some goals that you have for next year's event?
Yeah, our big goal for next year's event is actually to turn it into a fundraiser. The whole event itself is very women centric. 18 of our 23 sponsors this year were female owned businesses, which I'm so proud of. And I just get I don't know, such a nice feeling supporting women's businesses because there's so many small businesses out there. And yeah, it just makes me really happy to be able to support them. And then vice versa. They obviously like to support our cause based on the whole premise behind our event. So yeah, I would really, really love to support a charity next year. I grew up playing a ton of sports as a kid, and I know how much it did for me as a girl and building my confidence and my independence and all of those things. So some sort of girls in sport charity I think would be fantastic. But I'm definitely open to suggestions. So if any of your listeners out there have a female based charity or a girls in sport charity that they know of that they'd like to pass along to myself or to you guys to pass along to me, we are all ears, and that is our biggest goal for next year for sure.
Nice. So how many ladies did you have this year as compared to the first year?
We had 75.
Wow. Yeah, that's almost that's almost a full 50% jump. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm happy with
how
it.
what what type of numbers would you look at as probably the max field that you could put out on a place like Mickelson?
Yeah, max field they've told me is 144.
Okay.
Um, Basically put out two foursomes on each hole for a full shotgun. Again, me being naive and a little bit new to golf, I thought that if I could get 18 foursomes that we could do a full shotgun on the course. But yeah, I didn't realize how shotgun tournaments were run, and I now know that. And at first, my feelings were a little bit hurt when they were like, "Oh, we're just you guys out on a front nine shotgun." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I worked so hard," and I basically like at the time thought, "Oh yeah, we had sold out our event." I was so excited, and yeah, so I don't know, like we'll open up the registration to be even. I had to turn people away this year, so I don't anticipate it'll be difficult for us to get upwards of 100 for sure next year, and then we'll just strive towards that 144 over the next few years. And I know that turning it into a fundraiser is going to draw even more people because big corporate companies and banks and that kind of thing are more likely to sponsor groups of employees to go and show up and give us big sponsorship dollars, and it just kind of grows from there, based on what I've heard from the community. So yeah, we've got some ideas and we're hoping to get it there. I'd be surprised if we did it next year, but maybe in the next like 3 years, I think would be our goal.
I think what you have is something, that you can definitely build on. Do you think you'll keep it just the single Mast-Hers event, or do you think down the road there might be something else that comes along?
I think so for the most part. It takes a lot out of me to plan it. And I'm like you, like this is my baby and I have a hard time delegating to other people. And my girls are so helpful. My sister also helps me run it. So the three of them are completely invaluable. I love them to death. But I'm a control freak. I'm very type A. I'm very organized. I'm very like scared to hand things off to people. And like pray for me next year when I have to get married and planning my own wedding. Like it's gonna be so difficult. But yeah, I think we'll just keep it to the 1 year or so, the one event per year. I am looking at potentially turning it into a multi-day thing though, because right now I'm trying to cater to both competitive women who want to show up and win these jackets and win a prize and go home with something. And um, I I'm not that far away from having started golf myself, so I remember what it's like to go to a big fancy golf course like that, especially now with this big sort of intimidating but very wonderful clubhouse. So we have rookies that come out, like newbies who have maybe played one or two rounds of golf their whole life and they're very new to it. So I definitely want to be able to cater to those people as well. So this year we had both a competitive and a non-competitive stream. So we had the two streams, and only if you played in the competitive stream, which was the two-person scramble, could you qualify for these jackets. But everyone was welcome to compete for these proxy contests, just in case, you happen to like hit the shot of your life and put it to,
Right.
which I think is really cool if you're learning to get into golf and you experience really fun victories like that with your girls all around you. Like that's what, like you said, that's what kind of hooks you into golf is all those special moments.
You
So
bet.
I think I would potentially turn it into like a tournament day where it's all competitive and everyone's vying for those jackets. And then maybe just like a fun sort of learning based day. I could get the pros to come out and teach some of the new girls and have it just be two separate days. So that's definitely an idea that I have that we'll sort of chew on over the next little while. And yeah, and then there's just the opportunity to have more networking, more social events between the 2 days. We could do like a big dinner both the night of the tournament and maybe the night before we do a social with some live music or something like that. So yeah, those are some of the ideas that I have right now.
Yeah, it could turn into a really big 2 day type of event that you know encapsulates both days from morning to evening type thing. And yeah, from the outside looking in and just initially seeing this, the potential for this is literally limitless. Um, so, you know, hats off to you. Keep it going. And I was going to ask you because I've asked some of the ladies, on we've had some new ladies on new golfer ladies on our pod and stuff, and you just kind of alluded to it. Um, is golf intimidating for ladies?
Definitely. Yeah.
Right, right. And
Um,
I get this, and I want to get your thoughts on that because, and it's kind of outside of the sphere of what we were talking about. But um, you said you had some like rookies come out and play in these things. Uh, Having a safe environment to come and play those type of things is important. But just is it really into? I know it is, but kind of give me your thoughts on the intimidation of golf as a whole to ladies trying to get into it.
Yeah, it is for sure. I think speaking for myself, but I feel like I can speak for a lot of ladies too. We tend to be a little bit more conscious of how the world perceives us. Um, More people pleasers tend to be women, and so therefore we can get intimidated a little bit easier. We're very, conscious of how we move through the world on a regular basis, and so it's hard for us, especially at a certain age. Like I picked up golf when I was 32. And like as a 32-year-old, how easy is that to just go out and be like, hey, I'm brand new to this and I'm terrible. And especially like again, speaking from my personal experience, I played a ton of sports growing up and I'm quite athletic and I usually, pick things up fairly easily. But golf is a whole other beast. It's very difficult to learn. There's so much that goes into it. There's so many different skills you have to have. You really have to put the hard work in. And it's hard to for one, be able to show up to a golf course by yourself or to even know how to go about booking lessons. Like, thank goodness for Ryan, because he could kind of walk me through that world because he's very familiar with it. He's been golfing since he was 10 or 12, I think. But as a woman who like doesn't have that sort of support system behind her already with someone who's very experienced in the golf world, you just have you have no idea on where to start. And then even if you do go to a golf course, you don't know what the difference is between a public and a private course and what that environment is like. Like I had no clue. I had so many questions when I first started golfing. And obviously, one of those environments is much more intimidating than the other one, but you wouldn't know, right? You might just Google search, oh, golf courses in the area. I'm just going to stop by and see where I can start. And I'll just ask some questions. But you would be met with a lot of judgment if you just showed up to a course like Mickelson, just being like, I've never golfed before. Like, what do I do? Like,
Well, yeah, that would be a different experience altogether. But I mean, like, there's etiquette, there's
yeah,
rules, right? And I mean, there's just so much for that beginner golfer to getting into this sport. There's just it's almost like a whole society in itself. Our number one rule is golf is hard, and we take that to heart.
yeah, big time. Yeah.
So,
It's tough to learn. And like you said, there's so many sort of I don't want to call them unspoken rules, but there is just this very nuanced way of going about golfing. There's pace of play. There's all those things that, you kind of learn along the way, but there's no rule book necessarily. I mean, I know there is a golf rule book, but it has none of that stuff in it, right? Like the pace of play, the fix your divots, the mark your ball, the don't
yep.
walk on someone's line, the don't talk in the backswing. Like there's all of these things that you don't know going into it that almost you need a lesson just in that before you even swing a golf club,
In
right?
etiquette, right? In etiquette, and the rules is like 3 minutes looking for your ball and those type of things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it can be very intimidating. I believe it. Um, so, but you know, I think what you're doing is fabulous. I love the premise of what you're doing. I hope it becomes something that you can barely manage yourself and it gets so big because this is, I mean, I can't say how much I was excited to talk to you about this because the Masters is something that I really like, and I watch Masters golf all the time, um, and I hope this is something that brings you to the forefront, and we have to get some more eyes on the prize here, especially in the social media, and we'll help with that a little bit for sure. But Carlee, I really appreciate you taking some time and walking us through this Mast-Her's journey that you're on, and maybe next year, when you're prepping for this, maybe we can do a pod, either a prep pod or a post pod,
Sure.
and maybe we'll try and get your winners on,
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
something
Actually,
like that.
looking at your flag, I'll just give another quick shout out to my girlfriend Mandy, who lives down in the States. She's about to marry one of the PGA Tour caddies, and she hooked me up with some Masters stuff because her fiance goes every year. So I had a 2024 Masters flag as a prize this year. I had
Nice.
and what else did we have? Oh, a set of wine glasses with the Masters logo on them. So it was really hard for me to not steal those, but they were great prizes. So yeah, that's kind of some of the stuff that these ladies can expect is showing up and getting some really legitimate prizes. And I know as our sponsorship grows, that it'll be even better. So yeah, I'd love to come on next year. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's do it. But thanks, Carlee. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Talk to you
All right.
later.
Talk to you later.